All right, let's call this episode 8 of the Athletic Philosopher podcast. I am your host, Jordan Goldstein. Some people call me doctor, some people call me prof. You can just call me a philosopher. Today's episode is a very special episode. It is my very first race recap, race debrief episode that I've done solo. And today we're talking all things Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra 2024. There's so much to get through, and I likely won't get through it all in this podcast. I actually have something special lined up for later in the week where maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the technical training and competing elements of a backyard ultra. And so I think this episode is going to be a little bit more philosophical, not so much tactical in terms of training and competing. First off, what is a backyard ultra? Some of you out there listening may know this format, but I'm going to assume that not many do. Not many people even know what an ultra marathon is, or that people even decide to run in races that are further than the standard marathon. So an ultra marathon is just simply any race that's longer than a marathon. And a backyard ultra is quite an intriguing race concept. It is a loop race. It is a lap race. It is a last man standing race. Every hour, on the hour, you run a 4 1/6 mile loop. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to run that lap. The only thing that matters is that you're back in the starting corral at the start of the next hour to go back out and complete that 4 1/6 mile loop. Why this format? Well, if you do the math and run 24 of those laps in 24 hours, you hit 100 miles. That's a big number. Last year, I ran in this competition with two of my friends, Dylan Spina and Daniel Taylor. And we had a bunch of our homies come out and give us support. Zach Hommel, Mike Donatelli, Adam Sikora, Logan Turner. And if I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. And I remember thinking on the last lap of that race when I was by myself on the night course in the dark, burning every little bit of gas that I had left because we had made the decision to pack up our camp and get out of Dodge, that I needed to come back to this race. I needed to bring as many people as possible, and we were going to change lives. Because this format allows people who don't consider themselves runners, or even people who never considered the idea of running a marathon, even if they were a runner, and certainly never thought of themselves as ultra runners. It's the perfect format to shatter a limiting belief about yourself by doing something incredibly difficult with your body. And this stuck out to me so hard watching the race unfold last year. You know, in a regular race, the winner gets all the praise, right? The winner is the first one to cross that finish line, right? They break the tape, and there's the crowd, and everybody is cheering. Not this race. The people who go out first, the slowest people in the race, they get the biggest cheers. They are the ones who get all of the applause and all of the love. The winner, by the time the winner comes across, there is nobody left. Because sometimes it's 24 hours, or 30 hours, or 36 hours. And the people who started the race, they've packed up, they've gone home. But this race format, the people who finish earlier receive more love. And it's a format that is really inviting for a lot of people. So to further describe this backyard ultra, there are no aid stations out on the course. You bring your own aid station. So you set up a tent or a sunshade with a table and all of your food. Maybe bring a camp stove. Maybe you've got an electric burner. Maybe you're making coffee. Right? When you come back on the lap, you go right to your station. Maybe you've got a yoga mat. You're stretching out. Everybody's got some sort of a foam roller or a Theragun, bashing up their leg muscles, trying to get them loose after each one of these laps. And so it's a race that is entirely under your control in terms of what food you want, what nutrition, what hydration you want, clothing, stretching, and the crew, the people who support you, or your fans, right? You get to see them every single hour. On other races, maybe you see them one time, you pass. Or if you have crew at an ultra race, you may see them for 20 minutes and then not again for another 5-6 hours when you're out on the course. But in this race format, you're always coming back to the same place with everybody. And so we're all going out on this loop, and you meet people. You have conversations. You learn about their life stories. You get to tell them about why you're doing the race. And there's no sense of we're here to compete against each other. We're all here to compete with each other in order to help everybody go one more lap, a little bit farther than they've ever gone before. And so on that last lap, last year, when I got to 100 kilometers, I knew that this was a special place. I knew it was a special group of people who were putting on the race. Shout out to TJ. Man, you put on such good events, and your heart is always in the right spot, buddy. And we're so happy to always support your races. And I knew that if I could bring more people into that experience, we would exponentially increase the energy, the transcendence, and the potential that people could see inside themselves through competing in this race. And so right after finishing the race last year in 2023, I put out a wide salvo, a shot across the bow on Twitter and to all the people I know who are interested in running. And I said, come to this race. The 2024 Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra is going to be life-changing. Come run the race with like-minded people. People who want to push themselves. People who want to bring more from within themselves by doing something hard physically while smiling, while not complaining, while pouring out love and help and support to the other people on the course. And if we can do that, we're going to create something special and something lasting. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because we succeeded. We succeeded in a way that I don't think even I imagined. And I'll tell the story, and there's some rocky parts. There's some up and downs in it. So, let's go to the start. Why Prairie on Fire? Why Indianapolis, Indiana? There's a lot of us online who all find ourselves connected to one center node when it comes to business, entrepreneurship, and embracing physical challenges. And we all coalesce around one man, and his name is Zach Hommel. And I joined up with Zach and his network and his crew in 2021 in the fall. That's not true. I hooked up with Zach in 2020. Oh my gosh, it's been so long, bro. I apologize for a little bit of the loopiness on this podcast. I'm still very tired and a little bit delirious and probably still have hundreds and hundreds of milligrams of caffeine coursing through my body from what I took on the race day, which was only 2 days ago. Uh, so I do apologize if this is a little out there, but this is a philosophy podcast, and it's my podcast, and I get to do whatever I want. And I know that this is part of the story, and this is all part of the entertainment, and this is all part of the learning. So I hooked up with Zach in 2020 in the spring, when I knew that I didn't have a future as a tenured professor or even in the university. I had been working as a sport history and sport philosophy professor for 7 years, but the writing was on the wall that I was not going to be able to move up and really advance my career. I don't want to go into that story. But I reached out to Zach because I saw him living out an authentic life that I knew I wanted to live. A life built around embracing challenge, about carving out space for the things you value, and about working as hard as you can to serve other people in a way that also serves yourself in business. I'm not a very business savvy guy. I'm not really interested in business. I am interested in people who push themselves to the limit. I am interested in people who have incredible character building stories in their life and who have overcome incredible adversity and have built incredible things through sheer determination, willpower, and talent. And that's what Zach has done, building a gym, building a community, and building a movement around himself. And like a node, like a central node, we all kind of flow in to Indianapolis. In 2021, I joined a men's group with Zach, going from more one-on-one men's coach, business coaching to a real community. And it was something that I needed more than I could even imagine. Things were bad in 2021 for me. It was the COVID vaccine scare up in Canada with the passports and the threats and the coercion. My job was on the line. And I lost all my community. I had nobody. And Zach and all of the guys in those men's groups in 2021 and 2022, they saved me. And it was through shared competition, shared physical challenge, shared pushing our limits, shared vulnerabilities, sharing truth that comes out of that. And being open to those experiences, confirmed to me that what a lot of us, and especially guys, but I'm not precluding the girls, I'm not saying you can't come in, but I do think that there's something about guys where we need the band of brothers. We need the brothers in arms. We need the camaraderie of being in the trenches together, of doing something hard, knowing we're all doing it together, pulling in the same direction, and coming out on the other side. Whether that be hard personal development work, looking inside yourself, or running an ultra marathon together. That's what we needed. And in 2022, I saw a lot of my friends who I'd met in these online groups, and you might laugh and say, friends from an online group? Keep listening to the story. You'll get it. I saw them hook up with another guy who was in this node, right, in this network with Zach, Ryan Dreyer. And Ryan Dreyer was just starting out his endurance training business, travel training. And he took a bunch of meathead powerlifting guys and one sensei, Louis. He took him across an Ironman finish line, training in unique ways, in ways that are non-conventional to how a normal Ironman triathlete has to go about training. He got them all across the finish line, and here's the kicker: none of them were injured. None of them were injured. And so I started to see the potential of a community based around shared physical competition and challenge together. It was around that time that Ryan and I first hooked up on a phone call, and he reached out to me saying, I need your help. I need you to help me build a community around the transformation that I've seen in my life from diving into endurance training and competing. And it all starts to click. It all starts to come together. In 2023, I get the chance to meet my heroes and my friends, these people who I've created strong bonds with on the internet, in real life together. And wouldn't you know it, it's at a race. June 2023, first time I can enter the United States in over 3 years. We drive down to Indianapolis for the full Mo 50K trail race. Ryan is there doing some business work with Zach. He's not even supposed to be in the race. It's me and a couple of my homies like Mike Donatelli, Dylan Spina, Zach, Adam Sikora, Mike Whitlaw, a couple of people who are going to become really good homies in the future, Mason Montgomery. And we go out and we have a time. Ryan decides last minute, I'm not going home. He's just welcomed his son into the world. He's a few months old. It's his first time being away from mom and baby. He wants to get back, but he realizes I've got athletes going into the arena and I can go with them. And I can go with them. So we all run the 50K together. I watch Ryan live coach these guys on fueling, on run walk strategy, on mental elements, the things that come up in terms of pain or doubt or wanting to quit, any of those things. And I knew that this was the future. I knew that that's what I gravitated to when I was down in the dumps, when I had doubt, when I lacked meaning, when the world seemed to be crashing around me. I found strength, resolve, and purpose through competing with people in a group. And that sounds strange for an adult, right? But if you've been listening to these podcast episodes, you know that we used to do this stuff when we were kids. We used to be athletes. We used to play on teams with our friends. We used to grind through practices together. We used to share the triumphant celebrations of winning or the bitter defeat of losing all together. And we couldn't get enough of it. We're reestablishing that. We're finding that again. So in the moment at that full Mo in 2023, I make this decision in my mind that I need to get inside of the team, not just as a member. I was not paying for training. Ryan was paying me to consult, but I didn't really feel like I was a team member. I felt like I was connected to the team and I knew people on the team. And watching him coach, I thought I want to be a part of that on the building side. I know how to do that in a way that will amplify what Ryan is building, to bring in the depth and the meaning and the aim that he wants to establish. And I became a believer in it, watching it in the arena. And at the end of the race, I'll never forget this, Ryan comes across the finish line of this 50K. Within 30 minutes, he's in a taxi cab on his way to the airport to go fly home. and to go be dad. And in that 30 minutes, he wants a photo. He wants a team photo with Zach, with Dylan, with Mike. And he looks over. He's like, "You're getting in the photo." I said, "Am I part of the team?" And he looks at me. He says, "There is no team without you." And I get my tribal shirt back on, and I get in that photo. A few days later, Zach reaches out to a bunch of us and says, "Hey, TJ, the race director who put on the full Mo 50K, he's got another race in September. It's called the Backyard Ultra. You guys want to do it with me?" Yes, 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 yes. And I shouted at TJ before, but I'm gonna shout you out again, bro. This guy, when I talk about the ultra running community being a collection of the best people, it's people like TJ that make it true. TJ is part of a running club in Indianapolis. He's an awesome runner himself, and he's just starting to put on a bunch of races with his track club. The 50K race had a 6-hour cutoff limit. He watched us go through. We're all wearing these tribal basically jerseys. We're pumping up the crowd, like the volunteers. Every time we get to an aid station, we are smiling, we're happy, like we are bringing the light. That's a big tenet of our team. In competitions, we are the light. We bring the light. We bring positive energy and love. When everybody else is struggling and wants you to know how hurt they are, we are doing our best to smile through the pain and always find the fun and the gratitude in what we're doing. And just the 5 of us doing that on the course was enough for TJ, the race director, to sense that there was something really special and something really different about our crew. And he just loved what we were bringing. And so most of us had finished the race before the 6-hour cutoff, and we're sitting there, and 2 of our guys are still out there, Mike Whitlaw and Adam Sikora. And you think, well, it's a 6-hour cutoff. Tough luck. Too bad, guys. Just couldn't hack it. TJ says, "You got guys out there, we ain't closing this race. We're going to keep the finish line open, and we're going to get your boys their medals because they've earned it and they deserved it." And they really did. And I saw him do that, and I thought, that's a guy who gets it. He really gets it. It's not about 6 hours. It's about getting it's about getting more out of yourself than you ever believed you could by completing a 50K, right? And then I see him do something that's just incredible. It's a hot day. Like, it's a really hot day, and they were having some logistical problems on the course with some aid stations. Around 10:30, it went from a nice, cool kind of morning to over 90 degrees. And we were running out in the countryside and then into the heart of downtown Indianapolis. And so the heat change, even though the temperature went up, you also get that radiating heat from all the buildings and kind of like that stale air of the city. And it literally felt like we started to be cooked. And everybody got hurt bad who was still out there on the course. And there were some logistical problems. Like, I left Ryan and Mike and Mason and Dylan around halfway in the race because I wanted to run my own pace and not just kind of slow trot with everybody at the back. I wanted to be half with the guys and then half in my own race. So I left them, and I crossed about 45 minutes ahead of them. And it was so hot. I got to that final aid station, and I needed water bad. And when Ryan and those guys got to the aid station, they didn't have any water. They were in like the 5-10 minutes where they were changing out the water bins. So TJ kind of knew that there were some issues out there with hydration, and it's really hot, and we got guys still out there. He grabs ice cold water bottles. He doesn't know where these dudes are. They could be a mile. They could be 4 or 5 miles down on the course. And he bolts. He says, "I'm going to go run water to your guys to make sure that they're okay." You're awesome, TJ. Like, who doesn't want to support a guy like that? Who doesn't want to run in a race put on by a guy like that? And so when Zach says, "Do you want to do this Prairie on Fire?" It's, well, yeah, because I just had this amazing realization that competing in the arena with your homies is what a lot of us need. And I was starting to now consciously move my own entrepreneurial and business sort of aim towards doing that because it was so real to me. So we sign up for the Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra, support TJ. There's about 8 people from this crew that sign up. But as always happens, there's attrition, and by race day, there's only 3 of us left. Oh, I'm so sorry. DT, my guy, Daniel Taylor, he came up and he ran the 50K with us in Indianapolis. So he became an ultra marathoner with us that day. I'm sorry, bro. I said if I forgot anybody, I'd apologize. And I remembered you, but I still apologize for forgetting you. So DT was in, Dylan was in, Zach was in, Mike Donatelli was in. All these guys were in. But by the start of the race, there was only 3 of us. Dylan, DT, and myself. And our guys, they still came out and they supported us, but I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit of air coming out of the balloon. Because part of the whole reason of going was so we could all be together and do that whole push again. But let me tell you what, even with just the 3 of us in the arena and with maybe 5 of our people supporting us, it was electric. It confirmed in my mind that we need to come back and go bigger and better. So now I guess we're back at the start of the story. Anyways. September and October 2023, I am pushing hard. Zach and I are pushing hard to get as many people signed up to this race as we can possibly get. I told you that I had tried to gear my coaching towards competing and being in a group. I had one venture that I tried, didn't really work because we weren't all aimed at the same thing. I was trying to copy what Ryan was doing with Tribal because I saw how amazing it was, and I thought I could try to do something a little bit like that. First idea didn't work. Second idea, all right, let's organize a group around competing specifically in this race in September 2024. I signed up some local people. Zach signed up some local people. A whole bunch of Twitter people who follow us got real excited and they jumped on in. A couple of my one-on-one coaching clients, I brought them on with the idea of being in the group and competing in the race together as part of the coaching program. It worked really well in terms of the one-on-one work. And the group that I created, we called it the Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra Group. It's a really bad ultra. It's a really bad name. It was great. We had amazing energy around November and December. There was about 12 guys in the group. Zach had probably recruited about another 10 or so. We were looking at about 24 people coming down to this race. And this is a race where you can camp. So the idea was we're all going to go a day or two before, camp out, get to know each other, and through like the groups, the different groups and communities we're in, when we show up, we're not all strangers, but we're all real friends. We have real bonds, and that's going to make the race even more special. And things were going well. I brought in some of my friends for speaking gigs inside of the group, people who are also going to be running the race, like Dylan Spina, expert nutritionist, Austin Keith, or Barefoot Will, who was peer pressured by Zach and I to join the race, but he's a foot and leg specialist when it comes to rehab and pain. He's a PT and just an awesome dude. We got our photographer, our pro tribal photographer, Charlie Garwood, to come. We got a whole bunch of our friends, but also a bunch of people in this sort of like this coaching vein. And during this time, in the end of 2023, I fulfilled my wish And I was brought aboard tribal training by Ryan to become an assistant coach and the tribal prof. That's my official title on the team, is the tribal prof. Shout out to Ryan. You're just the coolest, bro. This is like a little bit of a delirious podcast, huh? This is what happens when you run ultras. You kind of float. You kind of float for a while. You kind of float on the high vibes, but then there's this ultimate crash. That's coming at some point, but right now I'm literally just still floating. So I now am inside of two different communities. I'm running my own online group that's geared around competition and personal development. And I'm now a part of an endurance training team where we're doing the exact same thing. And I'm not going to lie, in January, coming in 2024, I had 2 races on the schedule. Zion 100 Team Ultra with tribal training, which was born out of the 50K, the FOMO. The live coaching during an ultra was such a monster unlock that we created an entire team event and race to go do it big time in the desert, 100 miles. And I was on the team and I was coaching, but my heart was aimed at the Prairie on Fire because we were developing these really intriguing relationships. I was coaching a lot of the people, creating really deep bonds. And I thought that was the thing. And Zion was in the way, in a sense. Now, I trained for Zion. Seriously, I was super pumped for Zion. But in my heart, I was still with all the guys. Then I went to Zion and did the race, and everything changed. I'm not going to go into the Zion experience. I've got 5 hours with Ryan on our race recap podcast over at Tribal Training, and then each of the members of the team, the 10-person team, has their own podcast. So I'll just link you in the show notes here over to Tribal Training, our podcast, and you can listen to all the Zion stuff. There's probably about 25 hours of it, friends. And it's good. It's really good. But Zion was life-changing for me in a whole bunch of ways. And it solidified my path forward. And it wasn't going to be me building my own online groups. It was going to be growing the team into the best that it could possibly be. And expanding my role and capability and potential and opportunity within the team. And a month before Zion, I kind of put a pause on the group because I needed to get ready, and I was starting to get that race day anticipation and excitement for Zion, and I figured I'd come back and we would just kickstart it. But it wasn't in my heart. I couldn't give my heart to 2 groups, and Zion had firmly planted my heart within the tribal training team. Because I'm still making my way as an entrepreneur. I'm still making my way as a coach. I need different options. I need to know, because some things are going to work and other things aren't. So you got to always be trying things. And I knew in Zion that this was my path forward. And I never restarted my group with the same intensity, with the same verve, with the same fervor, with the same enthusiasm. And slowly but surely, it kind of splintered off and fell apart. And so people in the group will look at themselves and say, no, I didn't show up. But I was the leader, and I let the energy go, and I didn't refill it. And that's on me. And so people kind of fell off. And the group was kind of losing a bit of steam. And people who I was really counting on to show up, not because they needed to run or anything, but because I wanted to meet them. And I knew that if they showed up at the race, they were going to get something incredible in their lives. Some people started having work obligations pop up. Other people stopped training. And so the group got smaller and smaller and smaller. Just like the Prairie on Fire the year before, where we had 8 and we were down to 3. But I already knew that this was a possibility. In fact, I knew it was an inevitability. That's why in October and September, the goal was get as many people signed up to the race as possible, because we know most of them, or a lot of them, are not going to show up on race day. And I remember talking to my guy, Chris, about this. Chris Boyce, his shout out, what a hero you are. He was one of the guys I was coaching individually, one of the guys who I put into the group and told him, you're coming to this race. We're going to aim here. And a few months ago, he actually joined Travel with us and is just an awesome member and great teammate and just a savage competitor. But he turned to me at the beginning in October when he's like, I love this group you've created. I love the energy and I love everybody and I can't wait to meet, and it's going to be great, like racing with all these people. And I said, it's really, yeah, I agree. It's great, but not everybody is going to show up. And he looked at me like cross-eyed, like, what do you mean? They paid, they're going to show up. And I said, watch. Life gets in the way. Attrition happens. I don't have any bad feelings against any one person who signed up for the race but didn't show up. It happens. We've all been there. We'll all be there in the future, so there's no problem. But it just got smaller and smaller, and the energy was not quite as high on this race as I had assumed and wanted it to be at the beginning of the year in January. But we end up with a solid crew of guys. 15 people in the group. People from all over. We got a couple Canadians. We got people from the East Coast of the United States. We got people from the Deep South. Indy is just a really nice hub. It's a really nice center for us all to get to. It's a 10-hour drive for some of us. It's a 25-hour drive for some of us. It's a 17-hour drive for some of us. Everybody's driving. We all make the agreement to camp a few days before. Logistically, people are rolling in on the Thursday night or Friday afternoon. Race is Saturday morning. And getting there and being in person with these guys, some of them brought their families, made me so happy, because it was exactly what I had envisioned. And even though I felt responsible for letting people down in terms of my own leadership with the groups, I felt really good about the people that were coming. They were the people that needed to come, and everything just went incredibly well. I'm not sure I want to do individual shout-outs. I think that would just take too long, and I'll probably cry the whole time, because I'm still loopy, and I'm an emotional person. So let me just talk about a couple moments with a couple people that stand out to me. If you listen to those Zion podcasts, you'll know that I have this moment, and I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I have a tendency to happy cry in these ultras. Ultras bring out all the emotions and the feels, all bad and all good. And if you're doing it correctly, you're likely talking to God as well. So the emotions and the depth are real when you're in these events. And if you think that's trite or not correct, then you go out and run one and come back and talk to me about it. So in Zion, I have about 4 or 5 moments where I literally just break out into tears because I'm so overwhelmed with positive emotions of inspiration, of gratitude, of humility, of ambition, of place and purpose and path. And I forget the number, I forget the lap, but I remember running on one part of this Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra course. And I see my guy Kyle. Kyle came to me. He started working with me. He's a new dad, looking to find some consistency with fitness. But ultimately what we ended up doing is working out and working on this all or nothing mindset, which is such a thing with guys. We either have it all or we have nothing. And that stops us from making progress in meaningful ways that will get us to where we want to go. And Kyle was he was a great kind of like example of what happened with the group. Incredibly enthusiastic at the beginning, training, very serious, but then just life gets in the way and hadn't been able to get on as many runs. Didn't feel like he was in really like good running shape, but was coming up anyways to meet with everybody, have a great time, and to just see what we could do. And I see Kyle, and we are at, I think, like mile 37. So he's already smashed a PR. Gone farther than he's ever gone. He's already become an ultra marathoner, something he didn't think he could ever do. And I'm watching him shuffle up, and I'm behind, and I'm the coach, right? And I look, and I see the sun, and I think, you did it. Last year, running around this track, I wasn't really established as a coach. I wasn't established in business or as an entrepreneur with a role. And for me, when I talk about these things, for me, it's not about money. It's never about money. It's more about service and allowing what I think are unique skills and talents and abilities that I have through my experiences and through my academic studies and my disposition and my empathy and my heart, that I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and when I do it, I'm the best at it. That was the big thing with me for Zion. And I had this click moment where it was like last year when I was running this, I didn't really know where I was going or doing. I had a sort of a good idea and I was making momentum. But then I thought, I'm like, dude, you're running this course with 5 guys who came to you for one-on-one coaching, and they loved it so much, and it worked for them so well that they're here running this race right now with you. If you listen to enough of our tribal podcasts, you know that crying is certainly something that happens, and I'm going to try to keep it together here. And I started to let the tears flow just a little bit on the race. I didn't go full ham because I didn't want to just start bawling my eyes out 38 miles into a race around a whole bunch of strangers, because they're not going to quite understand what's going on, and I don't quite have the bandwidth to explain it to them. So I just suck up the tears a little bit, and I run up to Kyle. And I put he's a big dude. He's a big dude. Like tall and wide. Like solid guy. I put my arm up to him because I'm not that tall of a guy. And I put him back and I say, man, I'm so proud of you. I love you. And you're just doing amazing. And I'm so happy that we could all be together. And I'm not quite crying, but it's like very emotional. A very emotional moment. And I've talked with Kyle a bunch online, but this is the first time I've ever met him, right? I only met him the day before, but it's like we've known each other for years. And that's what it was like for everybody who came. So I think this one will be a little bit more, I guess is morphing into a little bit more about the guys, some of the special guys that I brought. And Kyle, man, this guy just absolutely dominated the race. He, as I told you, he didn't think he was in any way prepared physically. He hadn't been training really hard. And Buddy goes out and smashes 12 laps. 50 miles. That's not even enough. He comes in on that final lap, and we're about to go to the night course. And I was talking to him on this 50th lap. On this lap for 50 miles and saying, you going out for the night course? He's like, I kind of want to, but I don't have a headlamp. And I say, don't worry about it. We got stuff for you. You want to go out? We'll get it ready for you. And he comes back in. There's about 2 minutes to go for the cutoff. And he looks like, you start getting that look. He says, I want to try to do it. And he goes out, and it's starting to get cold and dark, and it's miserable. But he still tries to go out. And so the night course is an out and back. So there's a day course, which is kind of like a loop, and there's a night course, which is an out and back. So I'm out on the night course, and I'm out, and I'm on the back. And I know Kyle's not making it, just based on the timing and the people I'm seeing. I know he's not making it. He knows he's not making it. And I see him, and he says, do you think it'd be okay if I turned around and walk? And I said, bro, I'm forcing you to turn around and walk. You get back to that camp. You get warm. You've done an amazing job. And that's just so inspiring to me. Like, you don't think you can do something, and then all of a sudden you do 3 times more than what you imagined or you've ever done before. I believe Kyle's run a marathon before. And he ran 50 miles, friends. Over 50 miles. And what does that do to somebody? It shatters whatever limit they thought they had on themselves. Kyle is going to be like a new person because of that. And maybe I helped guide him there, but he's the guy who showed up. He did the work. I didn't run those laps for him. He did every single step himself. You're awesome, Kyle. What a performance. I want to shout out my man, Adam D. Adam has one of the most beautiful hearts I've ever seen in any person. He's just that guy. He's just that guy who is soft-spoken. He's firm, but everything he does makes you want to give him a hug. Love your hugs, Adam. Adam didn't think he was going to be able to come to the race. Adam hooked up with me and Dylan in 2023, and we did some coaching with him. And it was amazing. And he's had an incredible transformation, and he's been able to sustain that and keep it going himself. And fortunately or unfortunately for him, he got a promotion. He got a raise at work. But it was making him travel a little bit more than he wanted, and he wasn't sure he was going to be able to come for the race. And just like Kyle, what did that mean? Well, I haven't been training a lot. I haven't been really running for weeks or months, right? But God works in mysterious ways. The weekend frees up for him. And he gets to come. And Adam brings the absolute best perspective for the race. And he shares it with everybody. And we all feel a sense of, we'll say, calm strength when he mentions this. He says, I don't have any expectations of what the race is going to be. I don't have any number that I'm shooting for. I don't have any sense that if I don't hit this amount of laps, I will be a failure or it won't be worth it. I have no expectations. But I also have no limitations. There's no... If I feel like I'm going to be able to keep going, I'm going to keep going. There's no, oh, you hit 6 laps and that's all you were going for, so now you can get out of the race. It's no expectations and no limitations. And that just made everybody feel free, light, and easy because we're going out to do this really hard thing. People are scared of it. They should be scared. There's pain. There's suffering. There's the fear of blowing up. I said to everybody I was coming to run an ultramarathon, and I only got 2 laps in before I had to quit. There's a lot of fear there. And Adam's presence and Adam's spirit and his words, his wise words, I think made a gigantic difference for every other person to go out there and do their thing. I'm not sure Kyle goes out for 12 laps. Kyle brought his friend Ali. Ali thought he maybe could do 5. He hit 10. Adam hit a personal record in terms of the distance he's ever run. Just over 50 kilometers. Hero. And at the beginning, you would never have thought he could do. He didn't think he might have been able to do it because he wasn't training. Didn't think he could. And Adam, man, The moment he was out, he looked at me and says, "I'm ready to crew for you." When Adam said that, and we were kind of all meeting on the Thursday night, and that just became kind of like the way we talked about the race. We're standing around, and I said, "Adam, man, that is the goal, and every single person here has to take that attitude." And then Louis, Louis is the sensei. He is the sage. He is the elder man, the elder statesman of tribal training, the first client Ryan ever had. He is, I believe, he either had his 60th birthday this year or he still has his 60th birthday to come up. He's completed 400-mile races. He was one of the 3 on our team to complete the 100-mile race at Zion. He's one of my heroes, a total inspiration in life. And he looks at me dead in the eye, because Louis running the race too. He's one of the guys we got in to run it. He looks at me dead in the eye and he says, "Yeah, but not you, bro. Not you." Because my job at the race was to perform. My job was to go farther than anybody else. My job was to try to win. My job was to not quit. But for every other person, what Adam said held true. And I say God works in mysterious ways. Let me talk to you about my friend. Let me talk to you about my guy, Joe. I've known Joe for a couple of years now. We've been friendly and became friends online just through some shared interests about sport philosophy and argumentation. He's a lawyer. I'm the son of a lawyer. We have a great time. Joe started with me coaching in 2023, part of this group push, right, in terms of the race. He's somebody that's always wanted to run long distances, but has always had a lot of problems, say in like a marathon, for example. And Joe reached out to me early in the spring. He's a litigator. He says, "I don't think I can make the race. I got a trial scheduled for that weekend." And he says, "I'm hoping right now that things are going to get moved." And he's like, 80% of the time they do end up getting moved, but there's a 20% chance that I can't do the race. But you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to stop training for the race. So out of every single person, me, and I think everybody, of all the 15 guys, I don't think anybody trained as seriously or as hard for this race as Joe did. He really was dialed in on training. He was really focused on increasing his skill and stamina and strength as a runner. And I think it was about 6 weeks before the race date, he messages me, "My stuff is moved, and I will see you in Indianapolis." And I'm pretty sure that was what that was the spark I needed to feel excited about the race, because so many people had dropped out. And Joe, wow, what did we say? We were talking the day after the race and saying, we know that he didn't go the longest, but you know how there's like these awards in sports, like most outstanding performance, right? Like this guy showed everybody. Joe went 100 kilometers, 15 laps. Even more importantly, through those 15 laps, Joe showed everybody who he really is, the best part of his character, and everybody loves him. And everybody loves him because of the determination and the sheer excitement and enthusiasm he showed about being in he was so excited to be in the race. And that idea of God working in mysterious ways, clearing people's schedules, bringing us all together into these moments. Some people not training, smashing PRs, other people training and going 3 times more than they've ever gone. And doing it in a way they never believed possible. Yeah. Yeah, that's really it. And we'll finish off with my guy Chris Boyce. Chris You are such a king. Chris and I drove down together. Chris lives a little bit north of me here in Ontario. He drove his truck 9 hours straight down to Indy, and he drove him 9 hours back yesterday. Not a great idea to get into a car 5 hours after you finish an ultra marathon where you just ran 87 and a half miles. That's me. And he ran his longest ever, hitting 8 laps, 50K, and becoming an official ultra marathoner himself. And as I mentioned before, Chris ended up joining the team, and this was our first chance to race together as teammates. We run a lot together. I've never raced with him, and it was an honor and a privilege to be both the coach and the teammate of this guy. And if you want to understand out there listening why we do the races, why I talk about all the stuff about play and presence and gratitude and identity and meaning and path and transcendence and all of these things, let me tell you what I saw on Chris's face on the last lap. 8th lap. Well, let me back it up. Lap 6. Dylan and I were running. We're having a great little combo here. He looks up and he sees Chris just shuffling off by himself, and he says, I hope Chris is doing okay. And Dylan and Chris and I have formed a really nice friendship, the three of us. We live in Ontario together. We've done some really great runs. Dylan's been really encouraging and really helpful for Chris. They did a trail race together, the two of them, earlier this year, a 25-kilometer trail race up on the escarpment here in Ontario. And I think Dylan is one of the big reasons why Chris came on board of the team as well. And not just with me as a one-on-one coach, but coming onto the team. And so he, Dylan says, I hope Chris is okay. And I turn to him and I say, yeah, no, he looks great. He looks like he's in the zone. Like, he looks like he's struggling, but he looks like he's running with purpose. And so we run up past him and we say, hey, how you doing? That's the cool part about the Backyard Ultra. It's like you always are running with the same people. If I'm faster than you, well, I might be faster on that lap, but I'm going to see you again the next lap. And I'll just tangent here. I adopted a strategy where I would walk the first 2 minutes and then pass every single person in our crew so I could say hi to everybody on every single lap. And that was literally the best. It was so fun. I'd start off, I'd talk with Louie in the back for 2 minutes. We'd powwow about strategy and just about gratitude. And then I'd head off and I'd see everybody else. And we passed Chris, and he's got this giant smile on his face, and he says, PB is guaranteed today. It's like, I'm going to go longer than I've ever gone before, 1,000%. And you're like, are you hurting? He's like, yeah, I'm hurting. But he don't care. And so on lap 8, I pass him. He's beat red. He's kind of starting to limp. His foot and his leg are really starting to hurt him. Like, he's just not going to be physically able to go on after this one. And even to finish this lap, it's like every step is a lot of pain. Like, a lot of pain. He's in a lot of pain. I look over at his face. I don't think I've seen a bigger smile on a human being. Ear to ear. Wide. Pure. And he just says, I get it. I'm so happy. He described it to Louie. And Louie and him were talking about it after. It's like a euphoric pain. It's a pain of realization that you've just done something you never imagined you can do. And we had 9 hours in the car yesterday together. Because he looks at me yesterday morning. He's hobbling. He's hurting. Still the biggest smile on his face. He says, I know the plan was to drive back tomorrow, or maybe even drive a little bit today and then make the rest of the trip on Monday. He says, change the plan. We need to get back to Ontario tonight so I can see my daughter off for her very first day of school tomorrow. And the athletic coach inside of me says, the worst thing you can do is go and sit down for 9 hours in a car after running an ultra marathon. But the coach in me is like, let's pack up this second. I actually told him I need 30 minutes just to gather myself because I haven't slept or eaten and I'm still dead from the race. Said, give me 30 minutes and we'll pack this up and we'll be on the road and we'll be home tonight, because that's what it's all about. We do the races to learn about who we truly are on the inside so that we can aim ourselves where we need. Not at any of the BS, not at the status, not at the expectations of other people of what they think we should be doing or why we should be doing it. I don't care about the snide remarks. I don't care about the cheap shots that people play, thinking that what we're out there doing is hurting ourselves or suffering or just like hating ourselves. It's the exact opposite. It's because we love ourselves, and we realize that when we do these things, when we challenge ourselves and we rise to them, especially with other people who all care about us and want to see us win, we become the best versions of ourselves. And we don't even have to try. It just comes out naturally. It emerges. And then all the noise and all the garbage is shown for what exactly it is. And so I didn't know exactly what I wanted to talk about on this podcast. I knew that I wanted to hit record and let it fly. There's so much to talk about. I could talk for another hour just about strategy. I didn't even talk about my race experience, what I felt, what I learned. But I think that this is right. The stories of my four guys, Adam, Joe, Kyle, and Chris. The story of me becoming a coach through Zach, building with Ryan, the camaraderie of the team races, the enthusiasm of the challenge, what it brings out in all of us. That's the story I want everybody to know first and foremost. It's not how many laps I did. It's not my fueling strategy. It's not the shoes I picked. It's the becoming. It's the love. It's the transcendence. Sorry. That's what I want you to know. That's the most important part of the weekend. How many times, let's say you go on a trip, you go to a resort, or you're on a cruise or something, and you end up meeting some people, and you end up forming like a little bond, a little crew, and you think, oh, I love this, we got to keep this going, we got to get back together, right? We got to make this an annual thing. Or it's with your friends, you go out and you do something one time, you're like, oh my gosh, we got to keep doing this. But it never happens again. And then things get frayed, and you never see each other anymore. What's so different, what's so special about what we're all building together here? We all know when we're going to see each other again. Next year, Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra. Everyone's going to be back. We're going to be in different races together. People are already messaging me and saying, well, I'm joining the team because of the experience I had. And when you're on the team, we get to do this every day. This is our life as athletes, proper athletes in the adult sense. We get to train hard, we get to grow together, and then every few times a year we get together, we hug, and we throw down with intensity in these events. And we grow our bonds, and we grow ourselves in the process. And that was the thing I wanted most of all to happen at this race. And I'm just talking about these four guys, but everybody else who was there will testify that that's exactly what happened to them in one way, shape, or form. And I would talk for 7 hours, and I can't, because I actually have to call one of these guys and have a debrief chat as their coach. How cool. What a life you get to live if you aim with your heart, align it with what's valuable and meaningful to you, and just work hard and never quit. That's what endurance teaches you. That's what sports teach you. That's why I'm the athletic philosopher. When I was out there, I wasn't an athlete. I was doing research. And boy, howdy, I got some lessons that I'll share in another pod. But what I want everybody, again, to know and to listen to with this one if you're out there, you don't have a community, you're not challenging yourself, you feel like there's more to give, this is the way. Find like-minded people. Do a hard challenge together. Be open to the experience. Watch your authentic self emerge. Do it in a cycle and transcend. My heart is full. My legs should be a lot more tired than they are. But when you live with positive energy and vibes, when other people think you should be unhappy and suffering and in pain or hating yourself, you just rise above it all. And watching my guys rise above in a race where we competed together was one of the most amazing things I've ever experienced. And I'm really happy to have shared that story with you today, because it's my absolute honor and privilege to help these guys do what they needed to do and be the guys that they needed to be. Team. All right. We'll call this one. There'll be some more Backyard Ultra stuff coming. But I just feel really good about this. Thanks for listening, everybody. Peace and love.